Okay, so solving equations. My biggest recommendation, and we're going to start with some of these easier ones and then go back up to 1 and 2. My biggest recommendation is drawing a line down your equal sign. This will help you know when you need to change signs and when you need to do the inverse operation. So we're going to do that for all of these and makes it a lot easier when solving to keep up with what you are doing. So here are some tips over here that you guys can follow or just watch my video. So here we go. For number 3, we're doing the inverse operation. So remember, you're trying to get x by itself. So I'm going to highlight x. We're trying to get x by itself. So what's happening with this -7 and x? It's being multiplied. So the inverse of that is to divide. So we're going to divide by -7 on both sides. And 91 divided by -7. I have a positive divided by a negative, makes it a negative. And then 91 divided by 7 is 13. And then you can always check your work, and I highly recommend doing this for the SAT and ACT by subbing this value we got in for x. So -7 times -13 is 91. If you put this in the calculator, you will get 91, and this is a true statement. So you did it correctly. Okay, let's skip to number 5. Again, what's happening with this 2/3 and x? And it's being multiplied. So what we do is we do the inverse operation, which is to divide. And when we divide by fractions, remember, we do the reciprocal. So instead of dividing by 2/3, we're actually going to multiply by the reciprocal, which is 3/2 on both sides. So this becomes 1, so we're left with x. 12 times 3 divided by 2 gives us 18. So 12 times 3 is 36, divided by 2 is 18. Again, you can always take this value, substitute it in for x. So 2/3 times 18 should equal 12. And then when you do that, you get your right answer. So 18 times 2 gives us 36. 36 divided by 3 is 12. So we did it correctly. Okay, let's look at number 6 now. Remember, you're moving things away from x. So we're solving for x. So we do the inverse, and we're going to start with whatever's farthest away from the x. So what's farthest from x is this 2. The inverse of adding is to subtract, so we're going to subtract 2 on both sides. We get 3x. Those become 0. 14 minus 2 is 12. And now what's happening between that 3 and the x? They're being multiplied, so the inverse is to divide. And then 12 divided by 3 is 4. So you get x equals 4. Okay, let's look at number 8. I think that's another good one to look at really quick. Trying to get b by itself. Christopher Gomez, I know you're listening. And what's farthest from b? It's a -8. It's negative, so we do the inverse, which means to add or to make it positive. So we're going to add 8 on both sides. And 32 plus 8 is 40. And now what's next to the b? It's a -10. So they're being multiplied. The inverse is to divide. So we're going to divide by -10 on both sides. I had a positive value divided by a negative, making this answer a negative. And then 40 divided by 10 is 4. So b is -4. Again, you can constantly check this and make sure you guys are doing it correct. Okay, now on to number 1. So this is a longer problem. First thing to do is simplify both sides. So get all your constants together and all your variables together. So we're going to look at the left side first. On the left side, we have a 2y and a 5y. 2 plus 5 is 7y. And then this negative 4 stays where it's at. And now let's look at our constants on the right. We have a 4 and a positive 5. 4 plus 5 is 9 minus 3y. And from here, you can start moving whichever you want to either side. This is why this line down the middle of the equal sign helps. It keeps you in line so you know what signs need to change. We need all of our y's on one side and all of our constants on the other. So you can pick whatever you want to move first. So let's start with this 4. Right now it's negative. I want to move it to the other side. So I'm going to make it a positive 4. And it goes with a 9 on the other side. So we bring everything else down. The 7y stays where it's at. Negative 4 and positive 4 become 0. 9 plus 4 is 13 minus 3y. Now what can be moved to the other side? I have a y over here. I need to move this other y over here because there's nothing to do with this 13. It's by itself now. So I have a positive 3y. I'm going to add 3y on both sides. And so negative 3y and positive 3y become 0. We're going to bring this 13 down. And then 7 plus 3 is 10. Y. And then our last step, 10 and y are being multiplied. So again, we do the inverse operation, which means to divide. And y equals 1.3. So ISA 2, I hope you are getting this. Okay, now let's look at number 10. So this is a longer problem. Remember to draw your line down where the equal sign is. And so we see a number in front of a parenthesis, so we are going to distribute that just like we did with the polynomials on the class before. So we're going to distribute this negative 2 to everything in the parentheses behind it, and this 5 to everything in the parentheses behind that. So negative 2 times h is negative 2h. Negative and a negative make it a positive. 2 times 3 is 6 plus 5h. That just comes down. Now we distribute this 5. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times h is 5h. So like I said up with number 1, we're going to combine like terms first. So on the left side, is there anything that can go together? Yes. Negative 2h and 5h. So 5 minus 2 gives us 3h. This 6 comes down. And then is there anything on the right side that can be simplified? No, so it's just 10 plus 5h. Now again, you can pick and move whatever you want to. I'm going to start with the negative 6. So we're going to subtract 6 on both sides. Draw my line. And we're going to simplify. Bring down the 3h. 6 minus 6 is 0. 10 minus 6 is 4. And then bring down this 5h. Okay, now what can we move? Again, we have an h by itself, so we're going to move this other 5h over. So let's subtract 5h on both sides. 3h minus 5h is a negative 2h. And then now the negative 2 and the h are being multiplied, so the inverse is to divide. So Kenyatta, I hope you are getting this. Divide by negative 2 on both sides, and h equals negative 2. Okay, so now on to the next page. We have numbers in the denominators. We need to eliminate those first. So we're going to multiply both sides by those denominators, or you can find the least common factor between them, which in this case is 6. Multiply by that. However you want to do that is fine. I just think it's easier if we just start with 1 and work our way. So we're going to multiply by 2 on both sides. And then we're also going to multiply by 3 on both sides. And now simplify. So first thing, 3 times 2 is 6. We have this 2x plus 1. We're going to put it in parentheses. We have this x plus 1. We're going to put it in parentheses. So all we've done so far is we've taken these common denominators and we've multiplied them on both sides of the equation, because what we do to one side, we do to the other. So now we can simplify a little bit more. And you can do this a couple different ways. But the way we're going to do it is we're going to distribute the 6 to everything in the parentheses behind it. 6 times 2 is 12x. 6 times 1 is 6. We're going to do the same thing on the right side. So 6 times x is 6x. 6 times 1 is 6. And then now we can simplify these fractions a little bit more. This 3, if it can go into both 12 and 6, we can simplify, and it does. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Same thing on this side. Can 2 go into both 6 and 6? Yes. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. Now we have a normal equation, just like we had on the other side. So now whichever side you want to move first, you can. So let's start with this 2. We're going to subtract 2 on both sides. We get 4x equals 3x plus 1. And then what is like 4x on the other side? It's the 3x. So we subtract 3x on both sides. And we get x equals 1. So this is solving equations. You're going to do the same thing up here. Y'all can ignore this bottom part for what we're focusing on. So keep in mind how we are solving equations. Think of the tips that I showed you guys. Also keep in mind some of these tips that are on the side of the front page right here. So make sure you guys are practicing solving equations. This is a skill that you need in college, on the ASVAB, on the SAT and ACT, and all of that. So Reagan, I hope you're listening up.